So good afternoon. I hope you all have had a good lunch. The problem with good lunches is that they often lead to a good nap. So let us begin this afternoon. We'll sing the Vajra lineage prayer. It's a little warmer in here this afternoon than it was in the morning. Yeah, so we'll sing the Vajra lineage prayer in Tibetan. We did it in English in the morning. Whoops. What is that? Something's fallen off. There we go. O dolje chanjen telo narotam marba mila chuje gambo ba du som sheja kunjen karma ba che shi chunje juba zinandam Jita sum padendro baso sablam chadya chela nganyebe nyame dogen tabo kajula so adep so kajula manam jumba zino nam tarjin jilo shen lo gom ji kang bar som ba shin se nor gna cha shen me pa tam tsende de ta che be gom che na nye kor shen ba me ba jin ji lo mungu gom ji go som ba shin meng a der go jebe la ma la junda so a de be gom shen la Jimin mogu jewar jin jilo ying me gom jing wo shir som ba shin kanjar to be ngo so ma te ma ju de gar jo be gom shena gom ja lo tan ra jin ji lo nam do ngo che gor so ba shin Jiang Mayin Jiryam Charvala Mangaro Bar Charve Gom Chena Kordeyen Metobar Jinjilo Kewa Kundo Yang Dalamatam Dalme Chugi Palalonjin Satang Lam Jiyunderadzone Borje Changin Gompanyor Tosho Dorje Changin Gompanyor Tosho Chatsawadan Chuching Shabadan Jesu Yiran Gushing Suwai Gewa Chungze Dagi Jisaba Tamje Dagi Chanju Chirngo Sashi Puju Jukshing Medodam Jira Lingji Nide Gyambadi Sangye Shingde Mide Pulwai Drogu Namda Shingla Jebar Sho Semje Namgi Sambadam Loi Chera Jidawar Chejo Tumon Tebai Chugi Kolo Kordo Zo Minji Porane Dudun Zanjin Gunjingone Razan Jugon Wozun Zeba Bala Lama Dambala Jasa Liron Jigi Trubai Chipa Kunji Jin Jibarji Ngade Deva Malo Shapaji Diva Shen Jimmy Jidro Drogen Geo Kuna Jiran Chaja Chagi Junin Gorji Yang Amida Jibruzo de Tejalame Chipo Goro Jamani Chopai Jamandan Danan Jibi Shite Gyawase Namgi Topa Dara Daging Uzun Topa Jinjilo Jilon Jogo Topa Jinjilo Sozolongo Topa Jinjilo Raza Jogo Topa Jinjilo Kusun Elme Charwe Jinjilo. When the Dharma expanse palace of Akanishta, the essence of all Buddhas, at 3 times who shows me directly my mind is Dharmakaya. I prostrate to the glorious exalted Guru. Please bless me and all beings that our minds become the Dharma. Please bless us that the Dharma become the path. Please bless us that the path dispel confusion. Please bless us that confusion arises wisdom. And now please think to yourselves that we are listening to and teaching the Dharma this afternoon in order to bring, again, as we spoke about this morning, to bring all sentient beings, if you've taken the Bodhisattva vow or feel inclined to rouse bodhicitta, think to yourselves that we are doing this in order to bring all sentient beings to the state of completely perfect Buddhahood, and for that sake we need to listen to the Dharma. And please listen with this motivation of bodhicitta. If you're newer and you don't know what bodhicitta means or are uncertain, please think to yourselves that we must do whatever we can to bring all sentient beings to some sort of lasting happiness, not a temporary happiness, not just a band-aid for their problems, but a true happiness that comes from recognizing the nature of things, and that in order to do that, we also have to have some experience in this ourselves, if not a full understanding. And so please think to yourselves that we are engaging in the study of Dharma this afternoon with this motivation of bodhicitta, or the strong altruism. And the Dharma that we are listening to is the Ornament of Precious Liberation by the Lord Khenpo. We spoke last night about the life of Khenpo and gave some examples about the way he taught, kind of shocking examples in some ways. Often that happens with the stories of the past masters of the past, but also there are plenty of shocking stories about more recent teachers too. We don't need to go into those. I actually don't know too many because Trungpa Rinpoche rarely taught about those. Rinpoche was not into the shocking stories. He was not into these things. He was into talking about people who just practiced the Dharma and achieved results because of the practice, slow and steady, nothing magical. At any rate, so then last night we spoke about the introduction to the treatise, and so then today we've got to the main part of the treatise, which has the 6 main sections, the sections on the cause, the support, the conditions, the method, the result, and then activity. So these are the 6 main sections, and we're talking about the first, the cause. And as it says in the beginning, the cause is Buddha nature. The cause of what? The cause of completely perfect enlightenment. The reason why it's reasonable to think that if we put enough effort into it, we can achieve enlightenment is because we have the cause. We all have Buddha nature. There's hope for us all. Buddhism is, some people talk about Buddhism as being a pessimistic religion. Rinpoche often told a story about how he was on an airplane, waiting for an airplane, speaking with someone in an airport, and who said to him, Buddhism is such a pessimistic religion because you're always talking about death and impermanence, emptiness. Just talking about death and impermanence, emptiness, suffering, things like that. So, that's just not a hopeful religion. But when you think about it, we have a lot of reason for hope because we have Buddha nature. We have the example of other people showing us that we can go through the path and achieve all sorts of good results from doing that. We can have the example that we see in our own lives. When you begin Dharma practice, you can see the help that it gives you in your life. And you can see the examples of people like Khenpo Trungpa Rinpoche or Mingyur Rinpoche, to think of recent or living masters, or the Gyawan Karmapa, to think of stories like Khenpo and Milarepa, or even the story of the Buddha himself. It's possible for us to achieve a result. This is incredibly hopeful. But this is Buddhism and hope, is hope with a reason. You have to recognize the problem you're in. You have to know the situation you're in before you can do anything about it. If you don't recognize that this life is just inherently stressful, suffering, painful, not continual agony, not continual pain, but there's just enough stress even at the best of times. If you think I used to be a lay person. I used to be married. I had a couple of other relationships. And even in a good relationship with a good person, you've got a lot more work that has to go into it. And if you think about the amount of time that you spend doing the work and maintaining the relationship as compared to enjoying the benefits of the relationship, it's like, 23 to 1. And that's a good relationship. So it's just a lot of work to keep it up. And so recognizing that, no matter what we do in this world, it's actually just, if we don't approach it in the right way, it's just a cause of more pain and suffering. And so if we have to recognize that, then we can actually take steps to do something about it. And when we take the steps to do something about the suffering that we experience, the primary reason why it's reasonable and possible is that we have Buddha nature. So this morning we spoke about Buddha nature. We spoke a little bit about what it is, although it's really hard to say what it is. We spoke about quotes we discussed a few quotations from the Buddha and some from treatises talking about it. And then we started talking about the reasons for Buddha nature. And so the reasons why we can know we have Buddha nature are, as we discussed, there are the 3 main reasons. So since a perfect Buddha's kaya suffuses them, in suchness there are no distinctions, and they have family, so all beings have Buddha nature. Because we all, the Dharmakaya, the nature of emptiness, pervades all sentient beings, it's possible for us, when we achieve Buddhahood, to become Buddhas and have all the kayas, or all the bodies of a Buddha. It's possible. We see this with other beings who've done this before, and they started out exactly the same as us. The Buddha Shakyamuni was an ordinary sentient being who decided he wanted to achieve Buddhahood and worked at it and became it. All of the other beings, the men, the women, the whatevers, who decided they wanted to achieve Buddhahood and worked at it and have achieved Buddhahood, they all have been able to do this. This happens with people whose names we know, people whose names we don't know, who do it in private. So, and we have no idea who has become a Buddha or not, but people have done it. And so it's possible to do, and we can do it too. There's the perfect Buddha kaya suffuses. The second is that there's no distinctions in the Dharma nature, in the nature of all phenomena. It's not like the Buddha's nature is better than that one is higher, than one is lower. It's all exactly the same. The difference is just whether or not it's manifested, and whether it's manifested or not really comes down to, do we know it? Have we come to know it ourselves or not? That's the main difference. That's the only difference. The Buddhas are aware and we are not. And then the third reason is because all sentient beings have family. And so family is like saying you've got the potential, but the way the potential developed depends upon the environment, the family that you're in, and the conditions that determine it. So it's not just potential, but the way the potential is able to be expressed, because all sentient beings fundamentally have Buddha nature and all have the potential to achieve perfect Buddhahood, but not everyone's at the same position or the same spot. And because of that, we can divide people roughly into 5 families. So the 5 families are the families of the severed family, those people who just are unable in this lifetime, or probably for a very long time, to achieve Buddhahood because they have no sense of propriety or conscience, or they have little compassion, they have no interest, they denigrate the Buddha, they engage in immoral actions and so forth. They're just unable to do it at this point. That's the severed family. Then there's the indefinite family, which is those people who, depending upon their environment, could go one way or the other. And then you have the people in the Shravaka family and the Pratyeka Buddha family. These two together basically are the family of people who want to achieve liberation for themselves. Like when we think about all of our Dharma friends who are in the Theravada lineage, this is kind of their family. This is what they're doing. It's excellent. But from the perspective of the Mahayana, it's not quite enough, because they're doing it primarily for their own sake. And then the last family is the Mahayana family. So the Mahayana family is the point that we've got to in the text. And so to go through this, we'll go back to the text. So again, for those of you who are, I think a few of you seem to be newer faces. I've been just sort of reading this in Tibetan, or from the Tibetan text, and so it may be a little bit different from the translations you look at. But the section on the Mahayana family starts by saying, with a rhetorical question, what is the Mahayana family like? And in response, Gampopa says, in summary, the classifications, essence, synonyms, the reasons why it's superior to the others, the aspects, the signs, and the signs are the 6 signs that comprise the family of the Mahayana. So these 6 signs, we've got the classifications, essence, synonyms, reasons why it's superior, the aspect, and the signs, and the signs. So these are the 6 reasons that it's, or the 6 signs, or the 6 qualities that describe the Mahayana family. So the first of these is the classifications. Tibetans love classifications, because if you understand the different types that you have something, you will learn a little bit more about what it's about. Like if you think about why am I thinking about vases? It's because I spent too much time. If you think the classifications of vases, you can have clay vases, gold vases, copper vases, and so forth. And you can learn, therefore, that the mikla vases can be made of different materials, and this is a totally meaningless example. I'm sorry. Too much time in logic books. At any rate, let's just go on to the classifications, because by learning what the different types of the family are, then you learn something about what it is. So Khenpo continues, of these, the classifications of the family are that there are two. The naturally present family and the developing family, or the family that is accomplished, the accomplished family. So the naturally present family and the accomplished or developing family. So here, the term here in the Tibetan is actually the accomplished family, what you're accomplishing. Often we also, there's a different term used in Tibetan that would be like developing family. So what are these two? Well, in terms of the essence of the family, Khenpo then says, in order to explain the essences of each of those two families, the first is the naturally present family. It is the power or the capacity to produce the qualities of a Buddha that has been present from beginningless time and is gained through the Dharma nature. In other words, this is our inherent, innate potential to achieve Buddhahood, the qualities of a Buddha. It's the capacity that all sentient beings have to achieve Buddhahood. It's naturally present. It has been present from the very beginning, or the beginningless time, since there was no beginning, since, from the very non-beginning, whatever that was. We've always had it, and it's just naturally there. It's present because it's the nature of things, it's the nature of all sentient beings that we have the naturally present family. And the second type of family is the accomplished family, or the developing family. So Khenpo says of this, the family that is accomplished is the capacity to produce the qualities of a Buddha that is achieved by the power of previous cultivation of roots of virtue. In other words, by doing good actions, you then develop your more capacity to achieve the qualities of a Buddha. Like when you practice generosity, what are you doing? You're doing something virtuous. And what does that do? It kind of increases the positive habits in your mind that then kind of, if you do enough of this overcomes, or it begins to outweigh the negative imprints in your mind. It's kind of simple in a sense. So it's by cultivating roots of virtue, by doing virtuous things, that then increases your capacity to achieve Buddhahood. In a sense, it's like that is not really developing it, because you already have the potential for Buddhahood. What it's doing is it's helping you remove the obscurations. So it's kind of like a subtractive process. But it looks like you're gaining new qualities. Really, you're just actually, revealing or releasing qualities that are already there. So that's the developing family. So these are the two types of family: the naturally present and the developing or the accomplished family. Right? So those are the two types of families. So in these two, both of these, in both ways, they have the fortune to achieve Buddhahood. Actually, when we talk about no, that's a different thing. I'm not going to go on that tangent. Okay, so then the synonyms for the next part in the Khenpo's text is the synonyms for the family. It can be called family, it can be called the seed, it can be called the element, and it can be called the nature, right? So when we talk about Buddhahood as a family, this is what we were just talking about. It's kind of like the different groups of people we put people in, depending upon their individual situations and what they're able to develop. Then when you talk about it in terms of seed, it's like everyone has the seed of Buddha nature. So you can also call Buddha nature a seed, and that it's like a seed that's going to grow into Buddhahood at some point. The seed is present in our continuum. Then you can call it the element, because the element is also another way of thinking about the cause. This is the element of Buddhahood, that when you purify that element of Buddhahood, like when you have gold ore and you purify it, then you get gold. So when you have the element of Buddhahood, you have a sentient being, you purify it and you get Buddhahood. You get a Buddha. And it's also called the nature, because it's the actual nature of how things are. So these are the synonyms of the Mahayana family. And then the next aspect that Khenpo speaks about is the reasons why it's superior. So he says the reasons why it is superior to the other families is that the families of the Shravakas and Prateka Buddhas are inferior. The reason is that they only purify the afflictive obscurations, and therefore by merely purifying the afflictive obscurations do the families become purified. Their potentials become purified. In other words, there are two types of obscurations. They're what we call the afflictive obscurations and the cognitive obscurations. So the afflictive obscurations are the things like our greed, hatred, delusion, envy, pride, wrong views, misunderstandings in various different levels for various different aspects of reality. And as you go through the process of, like, if you practice the Theravada path, you gradually purify all of these entirely. And then you achieve the state of Arhat. So that would then be the manifestation of the final result of that family. You become the Arhat. But you only have to do those afflictive obscurations in order to become an Arhat. But underlying our afflictions, there is the fundamental ignorance of dualism, of seeing self and other as being separate. In order to achieve the state of an Arhat, you don't have to eliminate that. You can become an Arhat without eliminating that. And so there's still a fundamental level of ignorance that doesn't prevent them from being liberated from samsara, but it does prevent them from achieving Buddhahood. And so in order to achieve Buddhahood, you have to overcome these habits of dualistic seeing things, the difference between subject and object, apprehender and apprehended. So we have to overcome those obscurations as well. So in order to achieve Buddhahood, we have to purify both the afflictive and the cognitive obscurations. So, as Gampopa then continues, the Mahayana family is supreme because it's by purifying both obscurations that the family is purified. In other words, purified means that when you purify the family, then you are achieving the result. Therefore, the Mahayana family is superior to all of the other families and unsurpassed, or unexcelled, you could say. So those are in general talking about the nature, the different aspects of the family. And then what we've come to now are the aspects of the family, or the way the family manifests or the way it's seen. The aspects of the family are that you have the awakened family and the unawakened family. It's like you can be asleep or you can be awake. Your family can be dormant or it can be awake. So, I mean, if we were, I suppose I could have just translated this, the awakened and the dormant family, because we do have this nice English word. So, of these two, the awakened family is truly accomplishing the result. That is, the signs are manifest. There are signs of the family that are manifest that everyone can see. And then the dormant or the unawakened family is when it is not properly accomplished and the signs are not visible. So then the question is, well, if it is, then what are the conditions that make the family awakened or dormant? How do we know that we have the family? How do we know if the family is awakened or dormant? So Gampopa says in a rhetorical question, well then, that family, or what conditions waken that family? And what Gampopa says, you have to be free of the unfavorable conditions, and you have to have the favorable conditions, and if you do, then the family is awakened. So what are the unfavorable, and so then the opposite of that is the dormant or the unawakened family. So if basically we have the family, and it's just having the Mahayana family, it means that we have the cause, but it doesn't mean that we're going to actually be able to practice. In order for it to be practiced, it has to be awakened. We spoke about a tomato seed this year. You can have a tomato seed that if it's just lying out someplace, if it's in your seed envelope on the shelf with all your other seeds, it's dormant. It's not going to do anything. It can't be awakened yet, right? Because it hasn't got the conditions for doing it. And it probably also has things that are preventing it from awakening. But you put it in the pot and you add the right conditions, then it can awaken. It's no longer dormant, it sprouts. Similarly, with the Mahayana family, if we just sort of leave it alone and we don't do anything to awaken it, it's always going to remain dormant. It doesn't mean that you don't have the Mahayana family. You still have it. You just aren't in the right position for it to come out. In other words, merely having the Mahayana family alone is not enough. So well, then what are so of those, what are the four unfavorable conditions? Are being born in a place with no leisure. So we'll speak about that more tomorrow. A place with no leisure means a place where you haven't got the time or ability to practice the Dharma. You're too busy, basically. You're busied by being in a place, essentially it's being in a place where you can't do it, like being born in the lower realms, or being in a place where you have no opportunity to encounter the Dharma, or so forth. These are the things, these prevent you from having the leisure to practice, the leisure of freedom to practice the Dharma. That's the first of them. The second is being careless. The third is loparshupa. It's like engaging in the wrong activities, doing the wrong things. And the fourth is the fault of the obscurations, being too heavily obscured. You have too many obscurations to awaken the family. And the favorable conditions are two. You have the external condition of someone else who teaches you the Dharma, and the internal condition of the proper attention, which is the wish for the Dharma, and so forth. So in other words, you have to be in a position where there are Dharma teachings and people who can teach you the Dharma, and you have to have an interest in the Dharma teachings. If you don't have interest in it, then your family is never going to awaken. So it's like, I think for many of us, I mean, certainly in my life, there was a point in my life when I had no interest in the Dharma. And then conditions changed. I encountered the Dharma and I developed interest in it. And then because of that, I was able to move forward. Otherwise, I'd still be on the planning board in some town in New Hampshire or something like that, right? Maybe I wouldn't be on the planning board anymore. I don't know. That was a long time ago. Nothing wrong with being on planning boards, by the way, but it's like, so there was a condition that happened. I encountered the Dharma. I didn't have that condition of meeting the Dharma and Dharma teachers, and then I did, and because of that, my limited potential was, awakened to some degree, not much, but it gave me the opportunity. So if you look at your own lives, you'll see that there was a point where you had no idea what was going about the Dharma, and you didn't care. And then somehow you encountered it, and something made you come and do it. And I've spoken with many of you about how that happened for you. Something happens, and you get interested in the Dharma. We're not in a culture where we are just surrounded with Dharma from the time we're born, except for the very few who are born in Buddhist families, right? But most of us, that's not how it is. So this is what the difference between the awakened and the dormant families. So the family can be awake or it can be dormant. And I think this is probably similar with the other families, but here we're primarily concerned with the Mahayana family because this is discussing the Mahayana path. On the one hand, it would be easy to sort of sit here and think, oh, of course our family is awakened. But you should really look carefully and see, are you actually free of all of the conditions? Are you careful or careless? And if you're saying careful or careless, what this means is, do you actually value the teachings? Is this really important to you? Are you going to really take it? Are you going to take the Buddhist teachings to heart? Do you really consider it valuable? If you do, you'll naturally become careful about them. If you don't really care, if it's just like something you do, then you're not going to be so careful. You're not going to maintain them. You're not going to worry so much about whether you're doing things properly. So are you careful or are you careless? You have to look in yourself and see. because it's really, sometimes it's not as stable as you think. And if you want to make it stable, you have to kind of put some effort into it earlier in order to make sure that you're stable and that your family really is awakened, your potential is awakened. Otherwise, no one else is going to do it for you. You have to look at it on your own. So then the next section is the signs of the family. So these are the signs of the signs of the family are the attributes that illustrate the family of the bodhisattvas, as it is said from the Sutra of the Ten Dharmas, or the 10 qualities. The family of the intelligent bodhisattvas is known by the attributes, just as you know fire from smoke and as you know water from herons. When you see waterfowl circling in the air, you know that there is water nearby. When you see smoke, you know that there is a fire. And likewise, when you see someone with the attributes of the Mahayana family, then you know that they have the Mahayana family. It's just like you see the result, and that makes for that reason you know that there must be, that it must have been preceded by the cause. Without the cause preceding it, no result can happen. So, what are these? Well, excuse me, I'm going to turn this off so it doesn't bother me. Much better. Okay, I should have done that before the teaching. So, the text continues. Well, then, what are the attributes? It's naturally being gentle without depending upon any antidote. In other words, instead of cultivating some antidote that makes you more gentle and more soft in your nature, you're just naturally gentle without cultivating the antidote. As having little deceit and guile in your mind, and being loving and having loving kindness and sincerity towards sentient beings. So in this, those are the signs. So the first of them is naturally being gentle in your body and speech, your mind being free of being or having very little guile or deceit. Notice it doesn't say that it's absent. It says that there's little. Right? We're ordinary beings. The Buddha recognizes this. As long as we're ordinary beings, there's going to be a little bit of guile and deceit there. So if you find that you have some guile or deceit, don't be too hard on yourself, but recognize that they're not good. Okay, and then what was else? Oh yes, and then having loving kindness and sincerity towards sentient beings, or sort of a purity of heart. That's another way to put it. And so here, the Sutra of the 10 Dharmas, from the Sutra of the 10 Dharmas, not harsh and not langba. Oh, what is langba? I better look it up before I say, I'm sorry. I'm not remembering this word.
Rude.
What?
Rude.
Rude. It could well be that. Let me just check. Oh, let's get to the dictionary. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so abusive and rough and harsh. So it's kind of the same as being, as the first one. So what is it? Mitsup. So not being harsh or rough. Rude would probably be another good way to say that. Having given up of deceit and guile. Being sincere or pure towards all sentient beings. That is a bodhisattva. So when we say a bodhisattva, it's not necessarily just someone who's achieved some high level. It's someone who's taken the bodhisattva vow. That's beginner bodhisattva. Then you have people who are bodhisattvas who are acting on resolve, and then finally they see the nature of truth and they become actual bodhisattvas. So even at the beginning, when you take the bodhisattva vow, this is a sign. Taking that vow helps you overcome your deceit and guile. Oh, let's see, where are we? Alternatively, Alternatively, before performing any action, you arouse compassion for sentient beings. You have longing for the Mahayana Dharma. You are able to forbear any difficulties or any hardships without thinking anything of them. And you act properly on the roots of virtue that are by nature the transcendences or the paramitas. So those are the other qualities of the bodhisattva. In other words, someone who enjoys practicing virtue, who always makes sure before they do anything to really think about, I'm doing this for the sake of for other sentient beings. I'm doing it out of compassion. And this is like part of why we do things like meal offerings and things like that before you start. You have to remember that, we're feeding our body not just to get fat. We're feeding our body not just to keep ourselves healthy. Our body is something that we need to use for the benefit of other sentient beings. And so at the beginning, you think to yourself, I'm eating this meal for other people's sake. Then it also becomes, something that you're doing for the benefit of sentient beings. And this is a sign of the Bodhisattva family. So as it says in the Ornament of the Sutras, having compassion before acting, having longing, patience or forbearance, and acting on virtue, these are the signs of the family. These are the signs of the Mahayana family, as it says. And so in this way, now we've talked about all 5 families. We've talked about the severed, the indefinite Shravaka, Pratyeka Buddha, and Mahayana families. So we've gone through all 5 of the families. So then Gampopa then sums up the discussion of the families by saying, in this way, among those 5 families, having the Mahayana family is the near cause or the proximate cause of achieving Buddhahood. Having the families of the Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas eventually lead to achieving Buddhahood, so they are distant causes of achieving Buddhahood. The indefinite and among the indefinite families, some of them have the proximate cause, and some of them have the distant cause. Even the severed family is intended merely in terms of taking a long time. It does not mean that they'll never achieve Buddhahood, but it is the extremely distant family. And when you think about samsara, and you think about it being an endless cycle, in general endless, specific for any given sentient being, there is an end, but for many sentient beings, that end is eons upon eons off, a very, very long time off. And so it's a very long time. So there are many beings who don't have the capacity right now. They have Buddha nature, but it's difficult to reach them right now. And so that's the type of people we're speaking about in the severed family. As I said this morning, people in the severed family, they're not necessarily bad people. As an example, I used Hitler, Stalin, and Mao, but that's just an example. They may be people who because of their culture, because of their upbringing, their understanding, they don't think anything of killing animals. They don't have any idea of past and future lives. They don't care about karmic cause and effect. They may have some idea of acting morally in some level, but on other levels they don't. And so because of this, they do things that may be perfectly acceptable in society and may be encouraged in society, but in the end are just causes of falling into samsara. There are many people who are good people, but they have no interest in any spiritual practice, and they have this thought that at the end of their lifetimes they're going to be gone and dead. That's it. They have this nihilistic view that this life is all there is. They're going to enjoy it now. They're good people in the meantime, but they aren't able to practice the Dharma. They don't really care about the Dharma. They have no interest in it because it just doesn't fit with their worldview. This doesn't mean that they're bad people. A lot of them are our friends and our neighbors. And a lot of them are family. We all probably have people in our family who are like this, coming from our particular culture, right? And this doesn't mean that we give up on them. It doesn't mean that we stop. At some point, there's going to be a cause. At some point, by being good people ourselves, by showing the benefits of Dharma practice, by being generous and kind, maybe sometime there's something we can say to them that would help them, but maybe not. But by being a good example, hopefully in the future we can plant a seed. We can plant a seed in them so that sometime in the future their potential is awakened and that they're no longer left in that. And at the very least, we can always make aspirations that this person, this is a good person, this is someone I love, this is someone in my family. They haven't got the potential is not awakened now. They're in this severed family. This doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It means that they're someone who's just a longer way off. So you make aspirations. May I be able to reach these people? May I be able to help these people? May what I do in my Dharma practice be able to bring them so at some point, not too far off, that they're able to actually awaken interest and begin the practice and practice themselves. Because we're not in a Buddhist society. We're kind of like, we're here, a small group of people in a city. A very small fraction of people in the city are Buddhist. And so what are we going to do in this situation? We have to do something to help people. Of course we help out socially or whatever. People do things. A lot of you are also in, what do we say, the healing professions or whatever, and do things to help people, or education and things like that. But we also have to bring people long-term benefit. And the best way to do that is by remembering about the nature of the family. Yes, they're in the cut-off or the severed family right now. But we can make the aspiration that somehow we can reach them. In order to do that, how are we going to reach them? We have to develop our own potential, because the stronger our own potential comes through, then the more likely it's going to shine through on the other people in our lives. So this is very important for us to understand. The people in the cutoff family, in any of the other families, we talk about in the Mahayana, we talk in ways that sound disparaging at first of the Theravada or the Shravaka practice. But really, when you think about it, it's just absolutely wonderful. If anyone starts practicing the Theravada path, they get interested in it, they do meditation, they do retreats, and they travel down the path. They get some sort of good result out of their practice. There's no way to say that that's anything but excellent. Even if we know people, we're here in, a room in a congregational church, right? Even if people practice this and they have something good that comes from this is something we should celebrate and rejoice. When we think about Buddhism, and we sometimes get fixated on the words. You get the word Buddha. We think that is what we want to become Buddhas, and we get fixated on being this word, becoming a Buddha that's called by that word. But what we're really talking about is someone who is fully awakened, someone who is fully aware of their own nature. And it would be just arrogant of us to say that we are the only ones who know that path, and that the Buddha's only taught that path in a way that we get, and no one else gets it. That would be arrogant to think that. And so we have to understand that we have to have this view that even like here we have our, our Christian not Dharma brothers, it's our Christian brethren and sistren, or whatever you say. Congregation, excellent, thank you. That we're right there, and we're cousins. They've got a path too, right? So it's important for us to remember that. Look at all sentient beings. It's like here, it's talking about what are the signs of a Mahayana family. Looking at all sentient beings with love and being sincere, right? You want to be purity of heart, sincere and loving to all sentient beings. And this means we have to be accepting of them where they are. I'm Buddhist, I can't deal with that person. That's not good. We have to be able, because we're in a situation where there are so many people around. And then, there are Jewish synagogues and congregations. There are other religions. There are people who have no religions. There are the people smoking joints up on the corner there. And we have to be able to get along with everyone and see the benefits of all of them, right? It's not like, one is better than the other. It's just that we all are at different stages. And so we have to recognize that. Therefore, because sentient beings have those families, sentient beings have Buddha nature. So even when we see people who have the severed family, you think, gosh, there's no way they could get anywhere close Buddhahood. Even they have family. Even they have that potential. Somewhere lurking down in there. And because they have that potential, because they're in that family, and no one is like excluded from this, then all sentient beings have Buddha nature. So these are the three logics, right? We have the logic of the Dharmakaya emptiness pervading all sentient beings. In other words, the nature of the mind is empty, not identifiable, but this is not separate from the awareness. And if we can truly know this awareness, then we ourselves can become Buddhas and develop all the qualities of a Buddha, the kayas of a Buddha. That's the first reason. The second is that there's no difference. When you talk about the emptiness nature, there can be, if you could distinguish between good and bad, inferior or superior or inferior, greater or smaller, then you would be able to distinguish something and it couldn't be empty. You'd be identifying something. This is the good thing, this is the bad thing. And actually in emptiness, you can't identify anything that is good. You can't identify anything that is bad. It's all emptiness. It's all essentially the same. When we talk about dividing things into superior and inferior, good and bad, we're doing this entirely on the relative level. And of course, on the relative level, we at some level have to do it because we know that there's good behavior and that there's behavior that is beneficial for ourselves and others, and there's bad behavior that is harmful to ourselves and others. But it's not like there's some absolute, this is good, this is bad, therefore the Buddha is good, sentient beings are bad. It's not. So because there can be no distinction in the Dharma nature, in the nature of all things, and all sentient beings have this nature of awareness that can't be identified as anything, that empty awareness, therefore all sentient beings have Buddha nature. And then the third reason is because all sentient beings have a family. We're in one of these 5 families. For this reason, we can know that we all have sentient beings. So this is proving that we have Buddha nature by logic. So we first had the scriptural proof, and then we had the logical proof, and then next we have the analogies. Therefore, for these 3 reasons, all sentient beings have Buddha nature. We have taught that all sentient beings have that. So the next we have the analogies. And there are a lot of traditional analogies about this. And here, Khenpo gives someone. So it gives some of them, 3 of them, 3 or 4 of them. And also in terms of analogies, it's like silver, the silver that is in silver, or the oil that is in a sesame seed, or the cream or butterfat that is in milk. It is like that. So these are 3 analogies. You have silver ore. If you do enough stuff with it, you can, in other words, as Khenpo says, therefore, just as you can get silver out of silver ore, as you can get oil out of sesame seeds, or you can get butter out of milk, similarly, all sentient beings can be proven to have Buddha nature. There are lots of analogies, and Rinpoche often taught about the analogy about the poor person who has a shack on top of a garbage heap and doesn't know that there's a bunch of gold underneath it. But there's an even better relatively recent, it's only 80 years ago. This is a story from Trungpa Rinpoche's, after the death of the 8th Trungpa Rinpoche. So Khenchen Trungpa Rinpoche, whose picture is there, is the 9th Trungpa Rinpoche. So his predecessor, the 8th Trungpa Rinpoche, died in 1931. And when he died, his testament that he left to his attendant was, we don't have enough money to make a reliquary stupa for me. Just make a nice Vajrasattva statue. That'll be enough. Just make a Vajrasattva statue. So then the eighth Trungpa Rinpoche passed away, and his attendant started getting things ready. And he was he was a good attendant. He managed to get things together, and he got enough gold and jewels ready, not only to make a statue of Vajrasattva, but he also got enough to make a golden reliquary statue. But the unfortunate thing is that at that time there was a little bit of a war. There was a civil war in eastern Tibet at that time in 1931. And the armies, the previous Trungpa Rinpoche had given some advice to one of the sides, so the general was predisposed to protecting Trungpa Monastery. When their army got to Trungpa Monastery, the general managed to keep his troops from ransacking the temple, but he didn't keep them from ransacking all of the buildings, such as the Ladrang building, the office building of the previous Trungpa Rinpoche. And so they ransacked that. But what the attendant of the previous Tulku, his name was Karma Munlam, what he did is he took all of the gold and all of the jewels and he threw them down in the outhouse. So that they were covered in poop and no one was going to look at them, because you don't want to go looking in a Tibetan outhouse. They're still bad. So there is all this, and they came and they ransacked everything, they destroyed everything. And then Karma Munlam knew where the gold was. The gold was in the poop, right? While the gold was in the poop, it could not be made into a stupa, could it? But it still had the potential of being made into a stupa. It was still gold. The jewels were still jewels. They were still valuable, even though they were immersed in poop. All he had to do was go down and scoop them out of the poop and clean them off, and then he could make not only a really nice Vajrasattva statue, but also a very nice reliquary stupa. So this shows that it's like gold. You put gold in an outhouse and cover it in poop, and it is still gold, and you can still use it. You just have to get it out. Similarly, we have the Buddha nature. It's like the gold in that poop. This is an updated version of a traditional analogy that's in the Supreme Continuum. Rinpoche never taught it himself. But I just couldn't help it today. For some reason, I thought of it this morning. Last year when I was in Vancouver, we have a kids class, and I was telling them of the stories about Trungpa Rinpoche's life, and I had to tell them that story too. So now I've told it to adults too. This is how it is. Like our bodies are bodies look nice on the outside. You take the skin off. I mean, I don't know if any of you are surgeons or nurses, operating nurses. You've seen, it's pretty disgusting in there, right? It's kind of like if you go to a butcher's shop and you see the insides of a cow or a goat. It's pretty much the same inside us. It's not clean, and yet, in our minds, if you look at what's happening in our minds are certainly not pure. But we have that potential that's there, despite all of the obscurations and everything that's hiding it. And so that's the Buddha nature. This is the cause of achieving Buddhahood. We can all be really, it's a cause for confidence. If we follow the steps, we have the most important things that we need. We're talking about the first of them, the cause, today, and the second that we'll speak about tomorrow is the precious human body. I mean, because if we were like the lobsters we released yesterday, they have the cause, but they don't have the support. We have the cause and we have the support. And so we're incredibly fortunate. This is something that we should rejoice. As I was saying toward the beginning of the talk, Buddhism is a hopeful thing. It's not like, always talking about nihilistic and depressing things like suffering, emptiness, and impermanence. We have to talk about those. You can't close your eyes to the reality of the world around us. And sometimes it's by really looking at the nature of the difficulties in life and realizing your own problems in your own life. We have to appreciate that we have two things. We have to appreciate the suffering that we experience in our own life. We have to recognize it for being suffering. We also have to recognize and accept the fact that we don't want to suffer. And it's okay to not want to suffer. It's okay to want to be happy. And when we are able to recognize our suffering and recognize that it's okay to want to be happy and want to not suffer, then we can also really think about developing compassion for other sentient beings, because they are the same. They experience suffering. They don't want to suffer. So it's the same, and you develop compassion. And as that compassion grows, then sometimes it can be very distressing and very upsetting. But there's always hope, because we have Buddha nature. And other sentient beings all have Buddha nature. And we have to take a long view of it, because just as our own Buddha nature takes a long time for us to reveal, it's also difficult for all other sentient beings to do the same. So we have to recognize our own suffering, and because of our own suffering, we can then develop compassion for others, and as our compassion grows, we then develop bodhicitta and embark on the path of really revealing our own true potential for the sake of all other sentient beings. So I think that is enough on the teaching right now. We've got some people who want to take the refuge vows, and I think some people also are interested in the bodhisattva vows. Is that not the case? So we have two men who are interested in taking the refuge vows. Let me see. I've got the text here.